Hello, and a big welcome to the Strategy Remix. Thank you for joining this LinkedIn Live session. I am your host and moderator, Sammar Farooqi. We will get started in a few moments. Now remember, this is live social audio. So if you have a question or want to make a comment, please use the raise hand button so I can promote you to the virtual stage. This event will be recorded and made available on social media channels. Please note that any opinions expressed by myself, Sammar Farooqi, are wholly my own and do not represent or imply any official statement from my employer unless explicitly stated as such. All right, I can see people now logging in. Let's get started. Before I invite our esteemed panel to introduce themselves, I've prepared a short intro audio reel to set the stage for this fascinating topic. So everyone, let's get comfortable, grab your favorite beverage, and let's get into the Strategy Remix. Roll intro.
Listen to me very carefully.
This second wave of transformative artificial intelligence, we don't know fully what those implications are going to be. The whole way in which we make information and the basis of communication across society, like that is all going to be rewired.
At its simplest, generative AI refers to an AI tool that is generating or creating content that could be text, audio, or video. You're taking a really large data set and you're inputting a prompt, and then you're outputting something completely new that is learning from all that info and creating something to answer the prompt.
AI art generation tools have already been used to make a prize-winning picture, comic books, and magazine covers.
Artificial intelligence, it just got more real.
Artificial intelligence taking a dizzying leap forward. The company behind ChatGPT, which came on the scene just 4 months ago, out with its latest innovation.
It can summarize articles, craft jokes, and even decipher images.
For example, it can tell us that if the strings in this image were cut, the balloons would fly away.
After scanning a picture of what's in your cupboard or fridge, it can serve up options for a recipe.
The previous version of ChatGPT had about a 10% chance of passing the bar exam for lawyers. This new version that's being introduced today has about a 90% chance of passing the bar.
Speaking to Bill Gates about AI, I was honestly a little surprised just how excited he was. I asked him, how does this compare to previous technological cycles like the rise of the PC or even the internet itself? And Bill said that he thinks this is one of the 4 big technological changes of his lifetime. Overall, I would say Bill Gates was optimistic about the impact that these AI tools could have, particularly in the developing world where he spends a lot of his thoughts with his foundation. He was thinking about how some people may not have access to human doctors. You can do a lot as a foundation to try to get doctors to that place or train new doctors. But an AI tool that could answer some basic medical questions could fill a need without challenging doctors' professions.
Are the studios pushing back on this AI thing?
Studio executives have been outspoken and come right out and said they believe that we'll have the first AI-generated script within a year.
All previous human inventions, decision, what to do, it's always done by a human. Now, AI is different from any previous invention in history because it can make decisions by itself.
Wow, so hopefully you got a flavor there of the incredible news and commentary that's happening around generative AI. And I'm very pleased today to have an esteemed panel with me to talk about this subject. And absolutely, we'll take your questions and comments as we progress. Thank you, Walid, for raising your hand. Just invite the panel first before we start to get into the topic to introduce themselves, starting with Yousef.
Hi, good afternoon. So I'm Yousef. So I've been in the tech space for the last 6 years, and what I do is I help businesses navigate innovation using new tech. So I cover things like the Metaverse, I cover things like artificial intelligence and machine learning, blockchain, and all of that good stuff. So pleasure to be here, Sammar, and thank you for having me.
Likewise, and thank you for stepping in at the last moment to cover for Jamila, who unfortunately couldn't attend. But absolutely looking forward to having Jamila back for a future edition. Hichem.
Yes, so thank you very much for having me, Sammar, and so welcome everybody. So I'm Hichem. I've around 23, 24 years experience in the digital transformation and tech industry with various global players, exposed very much to the topic of AI, specifically in the last 2 to 3 years, and how AI will be transformative for a number of industries, basically for all industries. The ones that I am heavily involved in, CPG and retail. So I will talk about that and very much looking forward to have a discussion with you.
Awesome. Thank you, Hichem. Great to have you with us. A long-standing colleague and a fantastic speaker. Thank you so much. Simi.
Hi, thanks, Sammar. Thanks for having me. I'm Simi Gandhi-Wittaker. I'm Strategic Technology and Workplace Director for a facilities management company called Mighty. I guess what my role is to look at it from the other side of the angle. So use technology, but how do we use it to create those kind of really effective workplaces, but essentially also create experiences for the people that are in them. So I look at how we can enhance the service offer that we got using all sorts of new technology. So I'm really excited to be here and put that angle on today's discussion.
Likewise, and thank you, Simi, for joining and taking time out to contribute to this fascinating discussion. So we're going to kick off now. We're going to start with a panel discussion first. And as we progress, everyone, thank you for joining. Do feel free to raise your hand if you have a question or a comment, and try and get you onto the stage. But let's roll with the panel discussion first. And you heard there on the reel, hopefully that came across clearly, some of the major trending news topics and headlines around that, but also a brief introduction about what generative AI is and how it works. At the simplest level, it's just worth recapping that with generative AI, as opposed to perhaps you might say traditional AI that many of us have been involved in previous lives or in academia or in study or even used before, generative AI uses complex large language models to help generate content. So that can be text, it can be imagery, it can be video, and all these new use cases are creating a huge amount of opportunity in industry and for us as individuals. So I wanted to tackle this topic with the panel in terms of exploring firstly the impacts on individuals. So what does this mega trend of generative AI, what does it mean to us as individuals? And then we'll go into the world of business. What do these trends and opportunities represent for business? And then finally, we'll touch upon society as a whole. So we're going to go from the individual to businesses and then to society as a structure to manage this conversation. And then as we go, if you have comments or questions, we'll be happy to take them. So Simi, firstly, I'd like to start with you. So from your perspective, how do you see the emergence of generative AI as impacting all of us as individuals?
So I mean, I think I'll go wider than just the AI piece. It's technology as a whole, right? Just to start off with. And I think the way that I look at it is us as individuals, but how that impacts also the organizations that we all work for. I think for me it comes down to three key points, right? So one is, how do we reimagine what success looks like? And I think that's what we need to really get our heads around. And whether that's for us as using AI on a day-to-day basis as individuals, and using it to enhance our lifestyle, um, but also what the secondary element of that is, what are we trying to achieve by using this type of technology as an organization, and what impact does that have on us as individuals? And I know we'll touch on that later. But thirdly, do we have the right technology and the teams to support us in order to achieve that business outcome and that success that we as personally, as individuals, are looking for, or as an organization? I always relate it to a personal thing anyway, whether it's in my professional life or whether at home. But I recently ran an event, and the title of it was Tech, Tools, or Toy. And that is the motto that I generally apply to how I use technology. How does it improve my personal life? Whether it's not having to call up a call center and just deal with something remotely, to actually, how do I make my customers' lives easier, and what impact does that tech investment have for them? So I think it's having that understanding of what are we trying to achieve with the technology, which is really vital for the impact that we're going to have. And then I think just another point I'd add, Sammar, is, there's so many articles on this, right? We're in such an exciting age where AI has just flown exponentially in the recent months and years. And I think ChatGPT has obviously accelerated that further. But, it all comes down to the estimations of, we all use, I think there was an article that I read by one of the big four, and it's 40% of working hours are impacted by large language models. I'm sure some of you have read that and heard that, such as ChatGPT. And I think 62% of that is time that we use and employees are language tasks, right? So this is an exciting phenomena. This is how we can kind of really increase our human performance as individuals. That's my kind of view on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a very thorough and well thought out view. As you highlight there, generating personal understanding is as important as the technology itself. Right? How can we use it? What does it opportunity create for us? How does it change our world of work and how we relate to new opportunities all around us? So on that, Yousef, I wanted to ask you, what has been your personal experience and observations of generative AI so far, given your area of expertise?
Sure. It's been an explosion of information, Sammar, right? And honestly, in the beginning, it seems like every year since 2021 came with its own fad or trend, right? So 2021 was the year of cryptocurrency, and 22 was the metaverse, and then 23 we got generative AI, or as to the wider public, ChatGPT, right? And from let's say a trickle of information and the occasional research paper showing a wonky image, or a computer generated image that's not very well articulated, to suddenly having this announcement of ChatGPT, and me being this kind of innovation geek that I am, I had tested it out within the week, right? And since then, I've been seeing generative AI everywhere. So since the announcement of ChatGPT, and we've seen a lot of use of tools like DALL-E and Midjourney, it's now all over, whether my work laptop, where I'm seeing articles about generative AI, or I'm using ChatGPT, like Simi said, to help me with my language tasks, to craft an email that I'm struggling with a little bit, all the way to social media, right, where I hop on YouTube and I'm faced with images of Harry Potter wearing Balenciaga, right, that someone has created just for fun and for views. So and I only imagine that this will grow further. So as of today, just to summarize, I would say it's had quite a bit of impact already, in how I work, how I do things day to day, even how I look up information, where more often I find myself opening up a ChatGPT instance to ask for information, and then just using Google to verify, rather than going to that a search engine or anything like that in the beginning, just to get that conversational answer, or maybe just to be able to provide better instructions on how to trim down or pinpoint the kind of information I'm looking for. So and again, I only imagine this will grow with time, and will have insane use cases, and I really look forward to seeing that.
Right, yeah, I think we've seen those images floating on YouTube and other places. I think yesterday I shared a video where someone has reimagined Star Wars using Midjourney and recasting all the major roles. It's really incredible the kind of quality and content you can produce using these tools. And so related to that, Hichem, I wanted to get your perspective on what you've been seeing and where you think that these types of tools can help improve our personal productivity.
No, I think first of all, it's a real impact on our lives. I think that's why the hype is here, and the hype is also, in my opinion, going to stay for a while. Not like other technologies like blockchain or augmented reality, where it's really, really hard to get into the topic and get personal benefits out of it. Right here was the availability and OpenAI's ChatGPT and Midjourney, and it's really easy for every human to create content. Of course, it will help most of the people to browse for contextualized information based on specific topics that they are interested in. It will help to trial and test a number of designs, for instance, for their interior that they want to run and get more information about how they can improve their lifestyle. So I think a lot of use cases exist, and one can imagine a lot. The most important thing is what people are really going to make out of it that will have real benefit for their lives. And this, I think, is still to be seen. For sure, there will be a lot of positive, but also a lot of negative scenarios. I think the perfectionism of fake news will come to the utmost level now with the capabilities of creating content that is absolutely unverified, and posting it out to the world is very dangerous. And most of the people not being able to really ask the question if it's true or not. And that's what I like what Yousef said, right? You get information, but you need to verify, is this information true? Is this information based on foundations that correspond to a specific ethic, to correspond to specific existing knowledge, etc.? So I think there are two ways to see, right? In general, in the beginning, everybody will be playing with it and seeing where the benefits will come out, and we'll see at the end what the personal productivity, the impact will be, optimizing the personal task, scheduling the daily appointments, organizing the job in a way to get the most business benefits out of what personally one has to do for a role. I think more, and we'll talk about this later, from the business outcomes. I think this is a really interesting part of it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think the risk and reward is absolutely becoming clear. We've all seen various instances now of images and even certain videos going viral, which have been presented initially as some sort of truth, such as the Pope, for example, wearing a particular coat or wherever it may be. And it's becoming almost impossible to tell the generated image apart from a genuine one. And this has a great deal of potential for negative consequences. If bad actors get hold of this and really start using it, this could obviously impact certainly and disrupt people and organizations in unexpected ways. But I don't want to dwell too much on some of the downsides. We're going to come on to that. I think we can pick that up on the discussion about society. And I'm sure the audience has some strong opinions about everything we've said so far. So if you'd like to raise your hand if you have a question or a comment, be happy to take that. So just press the raise hand button if you'd like to share a question or a comment, and we'll be happy to get you on the stage. So just while we're waiting for any questions or comments, let's start looking at what are the implications for business. So we've heard about how individuals can potentially and are having to deal with these changes. So what about business? If we scale up now, so Simi, if I come back to you, as a workplace technical director in your role, what is your view in terms of how you're seeing the workplace being impacted by this, or how it will be impacted in the near future?
So yeah, I mean, it's phenomenal, really. I guess just sort of looking slightly on the concerning areas, so to speak, is it would be remiss of me or any of us, I suppose, not to mention the obvious around cyber threat, privacy, no regulation of data. This is all stuff that's kind of really new, and we're having to accelerate our learning on this and how to respond. For businesses like ours, we've had a technology strategy in place, I'd say, like all of us, we're really current, but even that almost feels like we have to dust it off again, and consider how we revisit it to take into the real consideration of AI and what role that's going to play and that key role, and how we all do it, in a safe way, so to speak, but also educate the people within the business to use these kinds of technology in the safe way. And I feel like to some degree we're kind of learning on the job, and especially in senior positions that we are. I think there is some learning. There was a time when we would look to our key strategic partners and they would have a complete idea of exactly what we're looking to implement based on our tech roadmap. Um, and yes, they may be slightly ahead of the curve in some ways, but not not that far away from us. So I think it is a little bit of a concern, and how we have to manage that and really accelerate our learning around this. But again, we adapt, right? And we know that it's just like when when the internet came alive, and all sorts of, like, the phone or any other phenomena. Um, but on the reverse, I think it's really, really exciting. It's a really exciting time for us in business, certainly for me. The work that I do is all about sort of doing digital remote engineering, how we can reduce energy and decarbonize um, our customers' estates. We can look at how we digitally improve that workplace experience. So this is super exciting, and actually we're hopefully in a place where quite quickly we can accelerate that truly smart estate, that truly smart operational solution. Whereas at the moment everyone's just sort of dabbling a bit in it, and none of it is being brought together holistically. And I think generative AI is really going to help accelerate that. It's my view on that.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's got a couple of questions. Let me, Aaron, would you like to share your question?
Okay, thank you very much. I have two questions, both related. One is every month hundreds of new AI tools coming up. For big businesses, it's okay to try out, but I'm a freelancer working with a few people. So, do we need to wait for more time to actually investing on this AI? Because most of them are like we have to pay for them. Other than the other question is for there are several applications, several apps. So what is the best tool to automate our task?
It's a great question. Yousef, would you
Thank
like
you.
to take that?
Sure, happy to. So absolutely, Aaron, you're right. It's easy for big businesses to kind of play around with the technology and take their time exploring their individual use cases. For smaller outfits like yours, you may want to uh, perhaps explore a bit more. So, for example, currently in a lot of, let's say, marketing companies, or a lot of social media now, you're hearing these AI generated voices. Some of them are more realistic than others. So if your kind of work or your line of work involves something like that, then you'd have to test out different tools, right? As of yet, there is no single best tool that's been named, right, in any vertical. And like you said, the use cases are popping up every day. What I would say is play around with anything that has a free trial, but I would also say temper your expectations, because anything that, for example, promises to automate the creation of slides, or promises to write code for you automatically, or anything like that, is likely to still have a lot of errors, and it's likely to still make a lot of mistakes. So use it as a way to boost your productivity. And again, a lot of these tools these days do allow for some free trials. So explore the things that have that, and then I guess this isn't financial advice, but whatever commitment you want to make financially, you then just find the tool that fits your needs and the needs of your freelance work.
Thank you, Yousef. Sound advice. Chuma, you wanted to make a point? Please unmute yourself. Yes, Chuma, you're live if you want to go ahead and
All
speak.
right. Awesome. It's also just like this is from an observation on my part. I think it's very fascinating how fast things are moving right now, especially with artificial intelligence. It's especially especially when we're looking at it from a business perspective, is that I don't know. It's not even going to be the next like few years or even a year. Like it's going to be the next 6 months where there are going to be two different kinds of users. Where there's going to be those who haven't adopted AI into their workflows, and those who have. It's basically the reality that we are in now, and it's fascinating, especially where I'm currently working now. We've already started to trying to early adopt as many sort of platforms and also various tools into our process, such as ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude, and with the way things are moving, you need to. I think it's always good to have that way of forecasting how, and also thinking of how you can integrate new technologies that are up and coming. I think AI has definitely the way the rate is going, especially with ChatGPT, it's basically taken everyone else by surprise. But this has been going on for years, the research and development in these sorts of technologies. So I think, especially when you're looking into further developments, it's always good to kind of like always be on the know on what's going on, like especially when technologies are it's at a very what's as Peter Diamandis calls it, at its deceptive phase.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. The rate of change is accelerating. How we respond as businesses and what choices we make around that are extremely important. What opportunity that creates. And on that, Hichem, I wanted to get your perspective. Then, what opportunities do you foresee or are seeing right now for businesses to take advantage of this technology?
First of all, I want to reiterate what Chuma said. It's a matter of speed, and this is where where I think the big issue lies for the moment. It's yes, there's no time to wait and see, like for instance, again with blockchain, and see what others are doing to adopt it afterwards and try to get business value. Or who will be the fastest, how it will be adopted, and what scenarios, what use cases every organization or industry will build in order to gain competitive advantage. And I think this is where the big challenge lies. On one side, one can imagine a lot of use cases, and I'll talk about a few ones for retail and CPG, for instance, which are the industries that I know best. On the other side, there are still a lot of issues if it comes, for instance, to scaling, right, or to ingesting information that are coming real time into the system that you need to use, training data, really connecting it to a vast amount of data that changes every second by new transactions happening in a specific organization, for instance. So a lot of problems still needs to be addressed and solved. It's not easy. It's not like using ChatGPT as a consumer, as a user or a private person, and get some insight. For organizations is much more difficult, and it's a platform game more than just a tool game. So the speed needs to be fast, but on the other side, it's about also to find the right approach to it. Looking into, for instance, as I mentioned, retail, for instance. So there are really different use cases that currently organizations are already thinking about and how to use generative AI. One of them, of course, is linked to better understand the consumer. So retailers are a really big challenge, and CPG organizations as well, to understand who the consumer is, how to address the consumer, how to personalize my message to the most possible way to the consumer without overstepping and really hurting the privacy that he wants to be respected. So really understanding more about the consumer, providing personalized messages, for instance, for marketing campaigns, right, or ads that touch not only a consumer group but really the consumer itself, and adapting the message to him the way that is linked to his profile in the best way. This is something that, of course, organizations for many years are trying to do: automate marketing, getting marketing more and more digital, ingesting data, getting intelligence out of it, and really activating right back to the consumer in order to sell more, in order to be closer to consumer, understand the consumer more. It can go as far as also analyzing which are the best assortment of products I can really sell through an e-commerce channel, really by analyzing the market, by analyzing the competition. Same thing for pricing. What is the best pricing? What are they? How can I adapt my pricing elasticity based on the different markets, right? And taking into account input data from that market, real-time data from what competition is doing. You can go as imagining future scenarios, like would the best store of the future look like, and how would the interaction with the consumer the store of the future look like. So there are a lot of scenarios one can imagine. I think it's still not here, so that's not something that you can do tomorrow. You can do it with machine learning models, of course, not as optimized as is the case with generative AI, but for sure it will come. And looking into the CPG area, everything around supply chain optimization, getting supply chains much more agile by being able to ingest even more data, real time, coming from the transportation and shipping routes, coming from the commodity market, coming from the suppliers, understanding where do I better source my commodities in order to manufacture at what plant, at what time, for which product, and sell to which market. So these are huge questions, and the competitive advantage of retail and CPG organization will really be played at that level. So I think endless possibilities, a lot of use cases are really being detailed currently, and a very promising environment. On the other side, and then I'll hand over to the other speakers, but I think something that I'm personally really excited, because my wife is an architect, and we talk a lot about the impact in construction business, design, construction business, and architecture. So you can really move from the way that the limits that you have today, also in your imagination about how future cities could look like, future buildings could look like, into an architecture without any limits. So you can imagine everything, and with 3D printing capabilities, you can really print buildings the way that an AI has imagined it. So the possibilities are really nearly endless. It's just about prioritizing which ones to start, which ones have immediate impact, and how to really execute on them. What platform to choose, what solution to choose.
Right, yeah, and it's an exciting time. I mean, making these choices and prioritizing, it's going to be very hard, I think. But I think one aspect was mentioned already. I wanted to pick up a quick comment from Yousef on this. Is in terms of generative AI creating code, right? This impacts directly the business that we're all in, right? In the technology business, at least. This has the potential to revolutionize how code itself is written in software applications. So, Yousef, what are you seeing or hearing in terms of how this may challenge or evolve the profession in software engineering, for example?
I think it'll provide a challenge to developers that's definitely more positive, right? So obviously there's a lot of fear and doom and gloom about these generative AI tools being able to write code well, or not well, depending on the tool that you're using. That still requires some degree of human input and human expertise. But I do think it will change several things. First of all, it will remove the syntax issue from coding, right? So whether you're familiar with a particular language that a certain platform uses or not will become irrelevant, provided that you have the foundation for that particular language. And then your job will then be to kind of drill down into things like code review, right? Beyond that, later on in the future, once these tools are even more capable, then analysts like McKinsey and the Big Four estimate that eventually we'll have generative AI that can write perfect code that's completely logical and completely fit for purpose, right? Upon compiling and upon using for the first time. So in that sense, I think it will change the game in software development, in that it will make the development cycles faster, which in turn means that we might be seeing shorter development timelines, especially if people develop using these modern methodologies like agile and pair programming or extreme programming. And beyond that, we'll see more rapid product creation. We'll see more rapid innovation cycles as people are able to test out new products on the market faster, which will then translate to hopefully a lot of startups or up and coming businesses or scale ups being able to find that degree of traction or product market fit that they're looking for. So maybe in the next few years, not an explosion of productivity and proliferation of small and medium businesses by any means, but we will be seeing faster timelines, and we will be seeing things like more rapid bug fixes and better root cause analysis that is AI aided.
Right, absolutely. So there's still some journey, some road to travel in terms of before you get to this perfect AI generated code. But from the applications that are generated from that, Simi, if I may get your perspective, then when you look at the workplace of the near future, where do you see the role of these sorts of applications or AI assistants in improving or supporting job roles and how individuals interact with technology inside a business?
Yeah, I mean, it's hugely important. And I think really, if I was sort of, if I put a hat on of if I was talking to, say, young people in a business, wanting to enter business, I would say, AI is sort of the future of the kinds of jobs that are going to be created. Um, people are going to be really key. Let's just face it. But we need to really think about the future of that workforce. So, having successful generative AI within a business, the implications of it requires people and training, not just the technology. So I think we just need to think about actually what is the future? What upskilling are we going to do? It's not just from the people that are going to create the use cases, but also the people that are receiving that. So, do we have I don't know, for example, Microsoft have something they're going to launch, obviously, Copilot, all based on AI. Can't wait for it to come in. But the way that I use it may be very different to the way my colleagues use it. And I think there's so much education and training that is going to be required. And we just need to really think about that, but expedite all of that. We need to start speaking to the universities. We need to start thinking, speaking to the future, thinking tech companies, and really start focusing on kind of the people side of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely key. I think now, we are faced with this. We're all having to learn as we go. I think it's fair to say that very few, if anyone, is a qualified expert with a PhD in generative AI. Those people are extremely rare. And even so, I mean, even if you were, getting it out into the world of work and in the hands of businesses and consumers to act efficiently, deliver results and prove that will require time to prove that these work. And there's a lot of debate around that happening in terms of, is it capable? Is it safe? Will it generate the correct results? And one of the risks with AI that we're seeing right now with generative AI, for example, is this hallucination type situation where you're using a large language model that effectively predicts what is the most likely, statistically most likely next word or phrase in that context that may be used. And if on occasion it's unable to find one, it may simply, based on probability, suggest something else. These words appear to make sense, and you may end up with something that's inaccurate. And where people are using this, therefore, to generate content or analysis, this has to be handled extremely carefully. And there is room for error. And I think all the AI solution providers do set out this disclaimer very clearly. But how people actually interpret that and how they actually choose to use it may differ. And this variation and the type of learning that's required for people to operate it successfully, such as understanding prompt engineering and all these kinds of new skills, is, I think, really going to challenge us over the next 12 to 18 months to really get up to speed. So just a quick reminder to the audience, if you have a question or comment, do use the raise hand button. Very keen to hear your thoughts and perspectives on everything we've discussed so far. And indeed, what you think might be the next mega trend for business. So while waiting for any other questions or comments, we'll move forward. Chuma, you want to? I'll just promote you to the stage.
Hello, and just a comment, especially when we're looking at the people side of things. I also think that is actually very crucially important, especially when looking at new technologies, and like you always have to think about impact of society and also the certain use cases and also unintended use cases are very, when you're doing the research, it's also quite fascinating. But essentially, just from a futurist perspective, you always want to create participatory futures, especially in looking back at the previous comments made on, especially when you want to, where like, sure, it's very easy for larger companies to integrate these new AI tools. But also, what about if you're especially working on a smaller scale or on an individual level, like how you have to think about, yes, it's like as mentioned, very much so. Think about how can it be used to improve individuals' lives? Someone who's also starting on a much smaller scale, as well as where, from a futures perspective, is where how you want to create participatory futures where you don't want society to feel like the future is being done to them, instead of, the future is they're actually active participants, or use active participants within the futures, that they actually have voice in it.
That is an extremely important point, Chuma. 100% agree. I mean, recently I read an article that in New Zealand, one of the Maori native groups is looking after the history and the culture and language of the Maori people of New Zealand, started an AI project to basically manage and ingest all the oral history and the written form of their languages using AI. But they chose to do this using open source and their own developed AI models because they felt that those that are commercially available have significant bias within them and would not, for example, be able to recognize the specific nuances that they needed. And if an AI like GPT, for example, which is trained on a general data set, it would not be appropriate for the kind of specific, culturally sensitive and the context required for their application. They've successfully done this now. I think they've been through several rounds of now being able to create an AI that, for example, then can have a conversation, that can recall and share many facets of their culture, language, song, etc. So absolutely a great example of grassroots AI-supported innovation, leveraging tools, but also using what's in the open source environment. And that's effectively available for free and for people to experiment on using their own data sets. So absolutely very, very valid. Got a couple more questions. So thank you, Chuma, once again.
That was actually extremely fascinating, that like grassroots AI movements like that, recording oral history and culture.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is something that we've seen, the concern, for example, particularly among native communities all over the world, where, as a statistic I forget, but, a certain number of, a frightening number of traditional languages are going extinct in various places all over North America, South America, and indeed in Australasia. And being able to capture those and train effectively a ancestral memory through AI, it will create another mechanism by which the cultures can ensure their longer-term health and share the culture for future generations. Thank you so much, Chuma. Pamela.
Hi, yes, I'm in California, and I just came on like a few minutes ago, and I was kind of hesitant, and I said, "What the heck?" And I'm so happy I did, because you guys are amazing. You're just at a whole different level. I train teenagers, specifically urban youth, on how to become what I call STEM, social media influencers, so that they can influence hopefully hundreds of thousands of urban youth to get into STEM and clean energy. And so I have been using chat GPT and all that for myself. It's basically changed my whole life in regards to my business model, in regards to research, and being able to put in if my business model is really, a good one or profitable, and just changed everything for me as an educator. And so my project that I'm working on, it's called the Urban STEM Power Educators Collab to Fund. Like, it's a workshop that I'm going to be doing live every week so that I can gather up a bunch of African American and Latino, more underserved, STEM educators and clean energy educators, um, so that we can all come together and start creating programs to get funded to educate teenagers, urban teens specifically, to get them up and running in regards to what is the future of work for them. It's like, you know, now that AI is something that's more prevalent, with regular people like me, um, I'm thinking, oh my God, these people are going to be left out. And so this is I feel like it's my job to really help empower and educate, um, specifically urban teens on what's coming in the future. And one of the name of one of our topics is the future of work for urban youth in STEM and clean energy. But that was before, I knew about Chat GPT. So now I have to add that in, and I'm like, oh my God. So I don't know. I was just, wondering how you guys feel about, this population. Like, if you think about all the things that we and I say we because I am African American, and Syrian mixed. But anyway, the point is that this whole generation is going to be left out pretty much unless somebody says, "Well, no, we want you to be included." So I just wanted to know what you think about that. And if any of you would like to be a guest speaker, I'm going to be having 8-week sessions on just the whole conversation for Collab to Fund. And so I will listen now. Thank you.
Thank you, Pamela. Thank you for sharing that. So I think we absolutely, all of us wholeheartedly endorse your position and the efforts that you're making, to share this technology and learning, particularly with those from underprivileged backgrounds. I think we can all relate and empathize to that. So absolute kudos to you. And I think certainly from my side, I absolutely applaud your efforts. It's exceedingly important. I'd like the panel to weigh in if they want to share any particular guidance or thoughts that they have. And certainly, Pamela, I'd be delighted to take up your invitation anytime. Please reach out to me if you'd like to invite me as a speaker. I'd be more than happy to assist in that regard. But to the panel, would you like to share any thoughts and perspective?
I think that's Pamela. Thank you very much for sharing, and please also count on me if you need a speaker in order to address your ecosystem. I think it's very important that people would not feel excluded, and people specifically when they are young, they have all the opportunities in order to really get educated, to understand what their place would be in a world with more generative AI than it is today. I think that's it's definitely something one will need to look at. And in addition, of course, looking at the workforce today and what it means for them, how the work is going to change, how the different capabilities, skills required are going to change. So I think a high level of flexibility is required from everybody in order to adapt, even more than in the past when one started to talk about the impact of automation, of business process, re-engineering, and all the different 1990s and 2000s paradigms in IT. I think this is now the next step that we all need to adapt to it, for sure. And we don't know yet how to do it, but for sure, having an open mind and really try to learn the most out of it and even find one's own way how to deal with the situation.
All right, thank you, Hichem.
I think.
Thank you. Sorry, we're run short of time. We've got 10 minutes to go. Got a few more questions from Ian. Ian, would you like to ask a question?
Yes. Firstly, thank you very much for a very interesting conversation. it's hard to come up with, a few questions. But so I've really got a two-parter. One is more about the goal and where we're heading with this, and one is more short-term on the very next step. So I have an IT degree from 1999, so last millennium, and even at that time, it was clear that IT technology was becoming powerful and cheap enough to facilitate centralization on a scale not seen before in human history. And that seems to have been the case. We obviously have IT companies, often American, but not always, that service a lot of the world. At least when they are American, there are some checks and balances on that. What's come out from, I think, from a lot of these conversations that we've just all heard is we can agree that AI is very powerful and becoming more powerful. And we agree that progress is very rapid. What I'm a bit not clear on, and we agree that we need to work to make sure it's done safely and ethically. I don't know what specific projects or movements are currently going on or proposed to try and ensure the moral use of AI. I wondered if the panel could tell us about some of those. Also, the question on next steps is really, as a business owner, and I speak to a lot of other business owners, we all have some ideas where we think we can use AI in our businesses, but we often don't know what we do about that. Where do we go to speak to someone about it and for feasibility and execution?
Right. Yes, Simi, sorry I interrupted you. Would you like to respond?
Yeah, sure. I guess there's several points floating around in my head linked to both what Pamela and Ian are asking is firstly, I think it's actually the complete opposite, Pamela, in terms of I think actually rather than being left behind, I think they are the future. I think there's so many opportunities. However, right now, you're right, we're not necessarily there from the education point of view. But Ian, to your point, I think what I would highly recommend, just because many of us on this panel work for large corporate organizations, it the one thing that we're all doing, uh, and I'm sure is consistent, and the one thing I would recommend is get part of the movement by talking to groups, by joining, sessions where these kinds of discussions are taking place, um, whether it's from a education point of view and university forums, or whether it's just from a learning. Like I go to a lot of round tables with other partners. I also do a lot of sessions with smaller tech organizations because everybody's kind of, I suppose, learning on the job because this is such a fast moving phenomena. And I would just say that be part of those conversations in order to help that. And I think as a small business, that's the biggest thing that I would recommend. I hope that sort of covers what you're trying to get at.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Simi. And I've got a couple other people waiting patiently. Chaka, would you like to introduce and unmute yourself?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Chaka Harris Henderson. I work at Columbia College Chicago in the United States, and I advise young creative professionals. So we've definitely been following the Writers Guild, for example. I advise the cinema and television students. They're striking, and part of the reason they're striking is because they want to establish standards with production companies and studios that AI will not be used to write scripts or rewrite scripts. And this is one of several things that the networks and studios would not agree to. We're also seeing AI generated visual art, AI generated photos, AI generated um, Drake songs. So the question I have is if you have any resources or people to follow, experts such as yourselves that are talking about the ramifications of AI in the creative industries, that would be really, really helpful because we're trying to figure out the best way to prepare our students for a world where AI is being used to generate art. Thank you.
I think that's a fantastic question. I was in a debate with someone the other day, giving the scenario of how long will it be before the estate of Elvis Presley sells his rights to allow him to be regenerated in a movie to appear alongside Dwayne Johnson. Right, this is perfectly plausible now. In fact, the digital rights to Elvis Presley were sold by his family, which are now owned by a conglomerate, and the same applies to Marilyn Monroe. So you may see the two together, in a sci-fi epic with Jennifer Lawrence in the near future. And this poses all sorts of incredible opportunities, but also risks. And what does it actually mean if you spin it off to digital rights, and who actually owns the copyright anymore, right? This is all sorts of implications. I think my personal view on this particular issue is that it's so new. Another way of looking at it is that traditional copyright law and the approaches to creativity are based on traditional methodology, which no longer applies. And how people can create lookalikes, but slightly different, and then you have to take it to court and argue the case whether this is actually the same or not, and so on and so forth, right? We're actually seeing some of these cases now starting to land. I think there was one singer who recently said, "Please use my voice if you want. Feel free. You can download it, create your own copies, and use it as an artistic tool." I'm happy for that to happen. So you're going to see, I think, a huge amount of variation in this. But Yousef, very quickly, wants to get your perspective on this. In terms of the creative industries and resources that people can leverage. Do you have a point of view around that?
Yeah. So in terms of kind of addressing this issue, I did come across a couple of writers or articles that did kind of explain how the more creative people can leverage these tools, or people in the creative industries. It's not a top of mind right now, but I can definitely send it your way later.
Thank
But
you.
in terms of whether this is something that will augment, or ways that people could augment, um, definitely in terms of generative AI, I think like Sammar said, we'll be seeing a rise in litigation for sure, right? And we'll probably need to work out new definitions of what intellectual property actually is. So to give like a classic example, if I use generative AI to copy the art style of Salvador Dali, or to copy Mark Twain's writing style, am I plagiarizing them? Or is this something that's completely new? So all of these are still open questions, and I think the world as a whole is still in kind of not in shock, but they're still kind of trying to digest what everything that's happening is. Um, but that what I do imagine is that moving forward into the future, we might actually have to change how art might be created, right? So um, what does it mean to kind of create art using pen and paper, or using the learning techniques, or understanding perspective and all of that, and how might we use AI to augment that? So I think that definition will be changing as well. Go ahead, Simon.
Absolutely. We're running short of time now. This has been a fascinating discussion. It's just flown by. So thank you so much for all your contributions. We're looking to wrap up in the next minute or two. I think you've been waiting very patiently. Thank you so much. Would you like to unmute yourself?
Hello. Okay. Sorry, it's me again. Me again.
Okay.
It's also just to wrap up again, and also just also just a bit just on my background as well. I'm Chuma Niklas, and I work for a software development company called Softtech, and I'm based here in South Africa. And it's just been interesting, especially with what we're trying to do here at the company, and just like also something in my personal capacity is also just looking into what we like to call technological leapfrogging, especially here I'm so fascinated with how technology within the emerging market can have a huge impact on emerging markets, such as just as in the African continent in general. And that's like one thing that I'm particularly interested in researching about. And I think especially AI is such a powerful tool, especially generative AI within the business context, has basically creates new paths for, especially for like developing economies to kind of like jump in, to leapfrog and essentially not go through like traditional routes of economic and technological development for the sake of sustainable growth. And what we're trying to do here, as especially the work that I'm trying to do in research, is looking into like how can we like through our services, looking to how can we upscale businesses within the market through a sustainable way using new technologies, especially with AI as well. Because one barrier that we have
Sorry, hey, Chuma,
that
sorry,
I've
thank you.
noticed.
So we're running very short of time now. We're coming up to the hour, and
Oh, sorry.
I appreciate we've kept the panel as well slightly longer. If the panel doesn't mind, hang on for 2 more minutes so we can wrap up. But thank you, Chuma. I think, again, we absolutely fully endorse the activity that you are outlining there. I think it makes an absolute lot of sense. And my organization, amongst others, has programs in place to support these, and I'm more than happy to connect you to the right people with our team in South Africa as well, who could potentially support such initiatives. So happy to connect you with that. Would you like to make any comment before we wrap up?
I'd actually just
sorry, Chuma. I'm trying to reach
my
Up
chat
here.
is also open, and I'll be more than happy to connect with your contacts as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Chuma.
Have further conversations.
Thank you. Anything? Sorry, I don't know if you're still there. If not, all right, I'll ask the panel then just to wrap up their thoughts. I know we're a couple of minutes over. Starting with Hichem. Hichem, what are your thoughts on this conversation today? And where do you think we need to go?
No, I think it was absolutely interesting and really passion-driven conversation. I like the different aspects we talked about it, from a personal productivity to supporting communities to looking into really the hard business benefits in certain industries. That shows that the topic is universal. That shows that the impact will really be beyond any boundaries, and I think it will create complete new industries, new business models, but it will also demand on the other side from everybody to be very open, to adapt, to learn continuously, and to find a space in this new world. And I think specifically if it comes to education, there's a lot that still needs to be done, and to prepare youth for a complete different future than the one that might have been planned for them in the past. So we're looking forward to support this with all my experience and knowledge.
Great, thank you. Simi, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just to say that it's exciting. We're all in it together. So, whilst for some of us it can be fearful, let's just, I guess, work together on how to alleviate any of that. Jobs will exist, but there'll just be different types of jobs. So let's think about adapting and changing our mindsets and educating and training, and actually demand for that education to take place. And yeah, just join some groups, be part of the movement and the discussions, and use it in the right, respectful way, and benefits will happen.
Absolutely, thank you, Yousef. Any final comments?
Yeah, I think we're headed for exciting times. I think the best use cases that generative AI has to bring are yet to come. But again, to be very cliche about it, with great power comes great responsibility. We'll have to be careful what kind of data we share online. We'll have to be careful what kind of content we consume. But at the same time, it will be a great ride, and it's definitely one of the most exciting ones to pop up in the past decade or so. So buckle up and look forward to it. And finally, Sammar, with the proliferation of AI generating AI voice generators, I just have to ask: is this the real you, or is this an AI generated voice?
Very, very good. I have experimented with that. I think I did experiment recently, and I shared it with Hichem to ask his opinion of that. Hichem shared an AI voice impersonator. What did you think of it?
It was surprisingly close to the real voice. So you could, if you know Sammar, you could still distinguish some discrepancies. If you don't know Sammar well, it's very, very close to the real voice, and it can be quite puzzling to find the difference. I like the exercise as an intellectual exercise, but I prefer the real voice with the real passion and the real heart of Sammar behind.
Thank you. Thank you, Yousef. And thank you to our panel, Simi, Dr. Hichem Maya, Yousef Al-Nour. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. This actually has been the most well-attended Strategy Remix so far. So thank you so much. We had over 400 registrations globally. So thank you so much for your support and growing this platform. And look out in the near future for upcoming sessions. I think I'm going to have a few more sessions on this topic. There's so many angles to explore. So my thanks once again to you and the panel for sharing their time and expertise and contributing to this discussion. It has been recorded. Hopefully, technically, everything is A-OK. So look out in the next few days for this to be republished on LinkedIn, YouTube, and other channels. So thank you very much. And I will play the outro.
Thank you.
You
Thank you,
have
Sammar.
been listening to the Strategy Remix with Sammar Farooqi. Many thanks to our panel for taking the time to join, and to you for your kind participation. Look out for the recording of this session on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you would like to be a future panelist, have an idea for a topic, or any follow-up questions, please drop a LinkedIn DM to Sammar. Remember, you cannot predict the future, but you can help make it. Start today with the Strategy Remix. Don't forget to connect or follow Sammar. Thanks again, and see you soon. Goodbye for now.